Hi everyone, my name is Nick Pecos. My shop and channel is the Pecos Aesthetic. Welcome back if you're someone who's already visited our channel, and if you're new, thanks for stopping by. In this week's video, we're going to talk about these three projects that I built in a day using scraps and offcuts in my shop. The first is a live edge cutting board holder, the second is a cell phone stand, and the third is a knife rack. These are great builds, guys. Like I said, they take a day to build. They use scrap and offcuts in your shop, so if you're using them to sell, there's very little overhead costs, and they also make great gifts as well. Let's get into this build, guys. I'm excited to share these projects with you. All right, so this first project we're diving into is the cell phone holder. So the first thing I'm gonna do is head over to my very large, very unorganized scrap wood pile here. Pick out some samples that I think would make good, pretty grain things for this project. Wow, I need some coffee. So I ended up going with a piece of cherry here, and there's actually a really cool story behind this cherry. A friend of mine donated this wood to me because it was out in his barn, which burnt down, and a lot of it was really burnt. But once I mill it up, this wood is absolutely beautiful. It's really nice cherry. So first thing I'm gonna do is take it over to my bandsaw and just cut it in half. This is a pretty thick piece, and I just wanna get rid of some material very quickly. And you can see I'm left with two really nice pieces. So I'm gonna take one here, then bring it over to my jointer to flatten it down, and then throw it through the planer real quick to get it an even thickness. Next, I'm going to take the piece I'm working with and just sand it down to 80 grit. I usually like to do this as a first step, just so I'm starting with a nice uniform piece. And then I'm going to cut this piece into my two pieces that I'm using for my project. And then I'm going to mark out where I'm going to put the slots. So in order for this to work, you have to have pieces that are exactly the same thickness, and the slots need to be exactly halfway across on both of them. So that way when you go to put them together, they line up. So I'm using a pair of calipers in this video to make sure I have even thickness, and I'm using them again to make sure that I'm putting my slots exactly halfway across. Then I'm gonna head over to the drill press, and I made the thickness of this cut exactly the same width as this Forstner bit. So I'm gonna drill out the end here, then use my bandsaw to make some straight cuts. And then I'm gonna sand out the middle of this just so that it's, you don't get perfectly straight cuts with the bandsaw. I'm just smoothing up the inside of this here. And then all I have to do is chisel out the little corners at the end of this using a small chisel and mallet. Now I'm gonna head over to the thing I can't remember the name of right now, router table, and I'm gonna put a small round over on these and then sand these suckers down. And you'll see here I'm using a Surf Prep sander, and if you don't have one of these, I just picked this up recently. It is such a helpful tool. I won't lie, they are expensive, so it's something to save up for. I think they're $600, but they really do make a difference. They have a soft foam pad, so it really lets you sand contours really well. It's made a huge difference in how I sand items. Lastly, I'm going to use Odie's oil to finish this product. This is a really good oil. I really like the smell of it. It really smells great. I use it for a lot of stuff. You'll notice this assembles and disassembles very easily. That's part of the cool thing about it. You can disassemble it, put it in your bag, carry it wherever you want to go. Also notice that I put a little piece of hickory on the back of this because when I first made it, the legs weren't long enough, and when I put the cell phone on it, it tipped over. So just be wary of that. Make sure you make that leg piece long enough. And this is the final result. Came out really nice. This is a really simple build, guys. You'll be surprised at how simple it is, and you really get a sense of satisfaction when you're finished. It's super quick. I ended up giving this piece to my wife, and she absolutely loved it. It's super useful. I think you'll enjoy this build. Moving on to project number 2, this cutting board holder. heading back to the lumber rack, and this time I went up into the upper racks and I found this really nice piece of elm left over from a prior project. I took that over to my bandsaw and resawed it into 2 equal pieces. The reason being it was 2 inches thick. I only needed pieces that were 1 inch thick, and if I resawed it in half, I got double the live edge material. Then I measured those pieces into 3 equal parts, so that way when I made my cuts, I had 6 pieces that were all exactly the same width. Then I'm going to head over to my drum sander, which has a 80 grit sanding belt on it, to give these a nice initial sand. And don't fret if you don't have a drum sander, you could just as easily do this with your orbital sander. This just saves time when you have a drum sander. I have one, so I'm going to use it. Then I'm going to use my orbital sander to sand it down to 120 grit. I'm pre-sanding these pieces because when this piece is assembled, it is going to be difficult to sand. There's going to be lots of tight spaces, so I'm just sanding it down to 120 grit, and that way when it's all assembled, I just have to do a light sand with 320 grit. So now I'm going to head over to the table saw and take 4 of my pieces that are going to serve as the dividers for the cutting board. I'm going to cut the first one down to the initial length that I want the divider to be in the back, and then I'm going to cut 3 more pieces that are each a 1/4 inch shorter per cut to create this nice stacked effect. That way you can see each level. Then I'm going to take my pieces and mark out where I want them to be on the bottom piece. And basically I have 4 dividers and I want 1.5 inches of space in between each divider. And then I'm going to put in a bunch of countersink holes. Then I'm going to insert all my screws, pre-drill out all the divider pieces, and then finish drilling in the screws. And then this bad boy is ready for finish. And for finish on this, I'm going to use teak oil. I've used this before many times. I really like the finish that you get with this. It's easy to apply. Just going to soak a rag, get it on this project as thick as I can, and then wipe it off. And this is the final result, guys. And again, this is a great project to sell or gift. I gave this particular one to my wife again. It got me huge brownie points. You can't go wrong with this project. It took me a couple hours to build, if that. This next project is going to be a knife rack / utensil rack. So I'm going to head on over to the old scrap lumber pile and pick out something I think would be good for this project. I selected this piece of reclaimed barnwood that I used for a recent reclaimed wall accent project. And what I'm going to do first is mark out the location of where the magnets are going to go. This is what's going to hold up your silverware / knives. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch flush trim bit here to cut out the area where I'm going to put the magnets. And guys, you really don't have to be precise with this. It doesn't have to be pretty. This is going to go up against the wall and it's not going to be seen. So, you know, make sure you cut the hole big enough, but don't worry about being super neat, super pretty with this. What you do want to worry about, though, is your depth of cut. You want to cut down to a depth where you get 1/8 of an inch from the surface of the wood, and that's so that the magnets maintain their strength through the wood. I've done a lot of farmhouse decor projects / rustic projects in our house recently, including ceiling beam installation, a reclaimed wood accent wall. So I wanted something that was going to match that vibe. This kind of project is my favorite to do because you don't really have a script, you don't really have a plan, you just kind of get into the shop and start working and figure out things as you go, and I really enjoy that. These magnets I picked up on Amazon. They're super cheap, they were like $6. I will warn you, if you're holding up smaller knives and forks and spoons, it's fine, but if you're going to hold up larger knives, you'd want to get stronger magnets than these. I found them to be not super strong, and they definitely make stronger magnets, so just word of caution there. To get these magnets set in the back of this wood panel, I'm just using some CA glue and accelerator to bind them down. For wall hanging hardware, I'm going to be using these keyhole slots. So I'm going to go over to my drill press here, and I'm going to drill out the holes using a Forstner bit for these keyhole slots. Your depth of cut here only has to be the thickness of the actual keyhole piece, which is maybe 1 millimeter, so you don't need to go very deep. The thing I love about these scrap wood and offcut projects is they not only make great gifts for family and friends, but they're also really good to sell. And the reason is there's very low overhead, you're not paying for materials, and people really prefer handcrafted projects from smaller shops. So after I've drilled out the holes for these keyhole slots, I'm going to set them in place using my good old CA glue and accelerator. Then pre-drill the holes for the screws and set the screws by hand. The final step is going to be putting some finish on this bad boy, and in this case I'm using water-based polyurethane. Then I can hang and enjoy my brand new silverware / knife rack. I'm calling this piece Supper is Ready. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, guys, and stopping into the Pecos Aesthetic today. Let me know in the comments which one of these projects you're excited to try first. And if you make one, please tag me on social media. I'd love to see your guys' work. If you're interested in seeing more beginner-friendly woodworking projects, check out this playlist, guys. It's got a lot of really good beginner woodworking projects, perfect for you. See y'all next week.